the flooding potential in Tampa?
Anderson, I'm hugely concerned. I mean, that is our worst nightmare. We are about to get our own version of what hell looks like over the next 24 hours. Between the wind and the rain and
all the hurricanes I've been in, and I still haven't seen anybody walking around. Thank God they're not trying to walk in this stuff. Out there right now, a big tree has come down, another tree over there. Again, and this is the area that's the newer part of Key Largo, so the building codes obviously were all followed. Out there right now, a big tree has come down, another tree over there. Again, and this is the area that's the newer part of Key Largo. So the building codes obviously were all followed. We just don't know what we're going to find when we get to some of the older areas, some of the mobile home areas. People didn't try to ride this thing out, Shepard, because as you can tell from the video, it just continues to batter us here.
It has. A quick update for our viewers. This from the Jacksonville area from the National Weather Service. There is a tornado now. It's a water spout at the moment. The National Weather Service says it's expected to move ashore as a tornado in Crescent Beach, Summerhaven, Marineland. That's in the Jacksonville area between now and 1 o'clock Eastern. The next 30 minutes, a severe storm and tornado warning now. Crescent Beach, Summerhaven, Marineland. If you are in those areas, get to a safe space. The National Weather Service believes a tornado is headed your way. Adam, lots of violent tornadoes out of this thing.
Yeah, Shepard, and it makes sense why. I mean, you see the winds. While it's still coming from my right, you're starting to see them to swirl. So I got to believe that means it's starting to switch out as you were talking about the other areas. I'm looking at over here. You're talking big pieces. The metal now, Shepard. 6 feet by 4 feet. That one looks like just twisted. It blew into a tree down here to my left. As I look back out behind me, you see parts of roofs torn off. And again, these are the newer parts of the area of Key Largo where we're located. And we're not near the eye as much as Key West was. And some of the video we've seen out of there is just brutal. And as you go South Isla Mirada and other places, we've been told they're getting hammered as well. You know, no way that anybody can go out and help anybody in this. And we know that the emergency services here said they would stop 45-mile-an-hour sustained winds. And again, that was a long time ago. But Shepard, I know you see the video. We can't see the actual. We can't see the actual. Holy smoke! We can't see the radar. You're saying it's passing us. We still haven't had that switch yet. You can tell it's still coming from my right to my left, which is basically east to west, Shepard.
Sounds like it won't be long now. Adam, your pictures are amazing. We've been watching in downtown Miami, and just moments ago while you were speaking, we were also watching in northeast Miami-Dade County, where the waters have just been kicking up very high. This is dangerous. This is in Miami itself. Turn around, don't drown is what the National Weather Service is asking us to remind our viewers. If you're out and about in this, they say you shouldn't be. And if so, waters are rising across South Florida now, just as predicted. Storm surges coming in. And as a result, their plea is turn around, don't drown, because the waters are coming up so quickly, as they are in the Brickell section of Miami. Some live pictures through WSVN 7 there. Let's look.
So they're not even that close to the water. And look how far, Diana, that water has made it, and look how high it's gone.
And one perspective that we can give you, I don't know
really strong gusts. Sorry, guys. There's another sign behind it that is minor, but it's some of the awnings that are on the roof of the hotel, and it's just getting more and more intense here.
We're deployed throughout the hurricane zone. Manny Bojorquez is in Naples, which could get a big brunt of this storm and is already getting it right now. Actually, we're going to go to Manny Bojorquez is in Fort Lauderdale. Manny?
We're told about this. Everyone had concerns about this beforehand, but some of those cranes they weren't able to get out in time. So they told everyone, if you're living near a crane, this is especially urgent to evacuate.
Yeah, this is a dangerous situation, of course, but we talking about this for days. There are about 24 of these cranes spread out around Miami-Dade County. There are a lot more up in Broward County, Palm Beach County. You know, that's the sort of that goes along with the boom in development that we have experienced.
So you had like Andrew, which was a ferocious storm, but smaller. This is a monster, which is actually continuing to draw. Attempts at rescue will be just terrible.
It's a devastating storm, and we're just beginning to see the start of it as it starts barreling through Florida, even though it is going on the west side of Florida because of the outer bands of this enormous hurricane. It is also affecting the east. Bob Ryan, thank you so much. Our breaking news coverage of Hurricane Irma continues as the storm roars through Florida. Stay with us.
This is a quest to explore the wonders of our world.
That's right. We have another one from West Inn. This is Vacation Village. This is from Franz Cayeta. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. You see the trees just being battered there by the wind, and it looks like he is inside. Hopefully those are hurricane windows. I'm sure they are. Thank you for sending this to us, too, for the balcony.
Let's take a look over a little east in Broward County, Cooper City, or south. In her neighborhood that the ground around here has been because of
and just the power of that wind, the force of that wind is just it's just incredible. And to give you an idea of how big it is, you can see there's like it looks like almost a 2-story house behind it that you can barely see poking out the top, and that's on the tree when the tree is sideways. So it gives you an idea of how big and tree was and was still blown over. Hopefully not onto that house, but we can just barely see the roof peeking out over the top.
Thanks for that picture, Cindy, from Cooper City. This is from Sabrina Kreis, who is in East Fort Lauderdale. So she's right by the water, and she sent us this video and some nice landscaping outside there, Sabrina. I wonder how it's going to hold up as we take a look at these pictures from East Fort Lauderdale, where there has been a lot of rain, and it's going to continue with those conditions, and they're going to be as the day goes on. We saw Hank's shot just a minute ago from that report where there was a lull, and I think that the concern that a lot of officials have is that that people will take that as a reason, as an excuse to step outside for a moment and to survey the damage that may have been done to their homes or to their neighborhood, just because there's a
Things really heating up there in Miami with Hurricane Irma still a Category 4. That was our coverage from our Miami station, WFOR.
Here right now with CBS News weather producer David Parkinson with the latest on what is happening with Irma as it tracks its way up the western coast of Florida. So David, what's new?
We've been ready. Well, understood. I know how much municipalities along the southwest coast. You guys have been through this before.
Yes, sir. Don't want to be out anywhere in the storm, and all the hurricanes I've been in, I still haven't seen.
We've opened 10 shelters throughout the Lee County area, and housing approximately 30,000 people. Some of these were specific shelters designated for special needs and also pets. We had mandatory evacuations already done yesterday in Low Lying area, over home parks, our barrier islands, and we also had mandatory evacuation in the area we call our Area B, which is basically the area that lines the Caloochalachi River. And our officers are out there
watching and waiting. There are
heavy
some of the outer
mandatory
bands of the
evacuation.
storm have brought some light rains compared to what is to come, and people here know that. The story, the pictures that we have been watching out of Miami on Brickell Boulevard, water just pouring down the street. That's where we find our John Berman right now. John, I mean, you know, again, the people in Tampa who, you know, luckily still have electricity are able to watch some of those images you've been bringing out of Florida, out of Miami. It's extraordinary what they have seen, and they know that is coming here and more and likely even worse.
Yeah, I hope they're watching and getting the warning that they should be inside, that they should heed the warnings, the calls to evacuate from the officials there in Tampa. Anderson, I'm holding in my hand parts of a plastic light that just snapped off a little bit down the way there and flew at me. I thought it was glass at first. Thankfully, it's not. It's just plastic. But you can see the debris is a real concern here. Not to mention the storm surge. You saw the pictures from Brickell Boulevard. You know, feet of water now during that, down that main drag in downtown Miami. Behind me, you can see the water lapping up over that dock, covering several docks here. The water has gone up several feet here right by the bay where I am standing at this point. We've also had serious issues, not just with flooding downtown, but also a crane, a collapse of a crane on Biscayne Boulevard. Rosa Flores has been watching it all in downtown Miami. Rosa.
Hey, John, here the headlines are cracking cranes, flooding, ponding, surge, and wind tunnels. That's what we're seeing. Now, take a look around me. This is a street now turned a pond. For people who are aware of where this area is, this is the Publix grocery store. I'm about 3 to 4 blocks from the ocean, and what we're seeing at this hour is the storm surge coming onto land, and then additional ponding because of the raining that's coming down and the streets not draining. Now, the other issue that we're seeing in this area, of course, are the cracked cranes. Those cranes, we were told, were supposed to sustain winds of up to 145 miles an hour. City officials said there was no time to remove them because they needed at least 2 weeks to remove them. Now we've seen the dangers, the failure of those cranes that, of course, are very close to high-rises where people live. Huge concern, of course, because city officials asked those people to evacuate for very reason. One of the other things that we're seeing here, people trying to walk through these streets, drive through these streets at this hour while Irma is here. That's what we're seeing, and that's what we're experiencing. I'm going to try to walk over here to see if we can take a look. This is closer to the ocean, and what we've seen is this water that keeps on ponding. Again, the storm surge coming onto Brickell. This is the financial district in Miami. Water on streets that are not supposed to be on the streets, of course. Ponding that is happening, and as more rain comes down, debris comes down, these drains are being plugged and the water does not drain off. Now, Miami needs to be drained on a normal day. So, John, when we are seeing surge, when we are seeing rain, when we are seeing debris clogged drains, a very serious issue, a very serious concern, of course, here in Miami as we continue to get pounded by rain and as the surge continues to come onto land. John?
Yeah, and the bad news there, Rosa, is Chad Myers told us not long ago we can expect 5 more hours of it here in Miami. And that's even before it goes up the West Coast where it could be even worse. Every time I feel like I'm suffering here in Miami as the wind comes down where I'm standing right. Just think of Kyung La, who is out there on Miami Beach, which is an island, you know, just off where I'm standing right here, who's getting it even worse than we are. Kyung La out there, if she can still hear me. Kyung.
John, it's the pelting rain and wind as conditions deteriorate out here at Miami Beach. it looks very bad. It feels very bad. But one thing we do want to tell you is that we just spoke with the mayor of Miami Beach, and he says that his city is in remarkably good shape, especially considering how much rain, the beating of wind that they're getting here. Seen are down power lines, debris, some overnight rescues before they had to call it. The city has been responding very, very well. He's very pleased. They have not had a massive amount of flooding here. The storm surge has been remarkably forgiving. We are seeing some water come in on the beach, but generally there hasn't been any major flooding here. So the mayor says the curfew will go back into effect tonight for anyone who remains here in Miami Beach. And something else that we do want to point out, even though clearly you can't get around in this weather, the mayor says that the bridge between Miami and Miami Beach, those connectors, those roads are being cut off. People are not being allowed in or out of an abundance of safety. John Anderson?
Kyung, thanks very much. I just want to give you a sense of Tampa. We're on the Riverwalk here, and we have been watching, and I want Chad Myers to see this because we're about to talk to him because Chad's been talking about this phenomenon. We have been watching this through the Hillsborough River, the water moving out into, being sucked into Hillsborough Bay, then on into Tampa Bay. You can see the sandy embankment across the river. The water has lowered while we have been standing here over the last several hours, and of course, that water, once the storm surge starts to come in, all that water is going to come back. It's going to come back hard. And the flooding, the potential flooding here in Tampa is a major concern. I just talked to the mayor a short time ago. A year ago, he had warned of the effects of a Cat 3 storm directly hitting Tampa, something they haven't seen since 1921. He'd warned about the 15 feet of water in downtown Tampa by City Hall. Again, that is going to whatever water comes in, it's going to be happening in the darkness, in the nighttime hours. And Chad Myers, the Weather Center, that storm surge that we can expect here in Tampa and that people in Naples can expect and in Fort Myers, it's going to be happening most likely in the darkness and often, and correct me if I'm wrong here, hours after some of the biggest, the strongest hurricane force winds have come through.
No question about it. The surge will happen when you think the storm is over. Because we're on the wrong side of what we think about hurricane landfall. We're on the west side of an island or a peninsula, whatever. We're typically talking about an East Coast landfall, and the surge comes in with the eye. The eye is going to go by, suck out all the water, and then the wind is going to get calm, and then the wind is going to blow back here at 120 miles per hour. And when it blows back, it's going to blow back all of that water that's now just piling up offshore. It's called a very shallow area, kind of a shoal out there. There's a lot of sand. You can go on a boat for 40 miles before you actually find any depth out here. All kind of sand, that shallowness will push that water quickly back up in Tampa as the storm goes by. And yes, you're thinking, oh, this is finally over. But if you are by the water in Tampa, it is not over. Now, let's go back to what the mayor said. A direct hit by a Cat 3. What does that look like? A direct hit by a Cat 3 comes in off the Gulf of Mexico and slams into Pinellas County or something like that, so that the spin of the storm pushes all the water into Tampa. That is not what we're seeing here. This is not a direct hit. This is not a 15-foot surge. Our storm is coming in this direction. So we're going to push all the water out, then we're going to push it back in, but only five to 8 feet. And I think that's still a very good number. And the mayor was correct. If the storm is slightly offshore, then all of a sudden we could get more pushback and get a bigger number than 5 to 8. But right now, I think that's still a fairly good number. Now, down here in Naples and Fort Myers, 5 to 8 is not the right number. You guys, especially from Cape Coral, Punta Gorda southward, you're 10. And if you get south into the Everglades or close to it, you're 15. You need to get out of the way of this storm. Marco Island, I know there are people hanging out on that island. I don't get it. You need to be off there before it's too late. I know there's a long bridge, and at some point in time, that window is going to stop. You're not going to be able to get off the island at all. But, you know, the entire island is going to be covered up in water. There's just not going to be any roadway that's not wet water. And then if you're in a high rise, and I know that's where people are staying, all your equipment downstairs is going to be wet. Everything electrical, everything HVAC, everything that you need to really be comfortable is going to be wrecked. And then you're still going to be on the island and you may not be able to get off. So that's all West Coast, because that's where the next focus is. Right now, the East Coast is still getting pounded, and that's where all of our reporters are seeing the surge into Miami, into Fort Lauderdale, all the way up the coast, anywhere along the intercoastal waterway. That's what's getting water now. If it's 2 to 3 feet, I think everybody can handle it. When it gets, and some spots will get 6 feet, then all of a sudden there's water in everything. Anderson. Yeah, Chad, and we want to start checking in with those reporters on the east coast of Florida. Brian Todd is standing by in West Palm Beach. Brian, how are things there?
Anderson, we're getting pounded with some of the early stages of hurricane force winds here. We're now in the window. In the next several hours, we're going to really get the most intense storm surge that this area is probably going to see. The storm surge is just allowing the water in the intercoastal waterway to pound up against that walkway there. And the mayor of West Palm Beach, I just talked to her on the phone, Jerry Moyo, she told me she's really concerned on flooding because the storm surge is going to come up a couple of feet at least. It's going to probably inundate this area with water. She's worried about this drive, Flagler Drive, getting flooded. There is some water over here, and the wind intensity has really picked up in the last like 15 minutes. These palm trees behind me are starting to get compromised. There's one over here that's leaning badly, and palm fronds and coconuts are becoming projectiles. They're starting to fly all over the place here. Just below it, you see these street signs wobbling, and even these sturdy stanchions behind me that have the street lights on them, they're starting to wobble a little bit. So that's a real concern. I also just spoke to a local fire chief who said that basically we're in the window now where people call 911 to come out and get them. It's just too dangerous for the first responders. That chief also told me, he said there's a big concern about the construction cranes, like the one in Miami that snapped or at least cracked. There's one over here. The chief assured me that these are secured, that the tops of them are pulling with the wind. He said they're supposed to do that. They're supposed to go around like a weather vane. They are pulling with the wind. He said they're in good shape, and he wants to reassure people of that. And he wanted to clarify something on our air. I think one of the experts said that we had said that people hadn't evacuated these buildings next to the cranes. Well, some people did evacuate. They were under a voluntary evacuation notice. Some of them got out, some of them not. But the people who did not, who live in these apartment buildings, have told us they are now concerned that these cranes may hit their apartment buildings. But one of the assistant fire chiefs just told me right now they're confident they're going to stay in place. Anderson.
Brian, I appreciate that. And you know, a place like Tampa, and really in a lot of cities in Florida, they've seen such a real estate boom over the last couple of years. There are cranes everywhere. I mean, even here in Tampa, right by a river, we have two cranes over here, and they weren't expecting as big a storm as is going to be hitting Tampa. I assume those have been secured. best they can. Obviously, something a lot of people who live around here, who have stayed around here, are going to continue to watch because there are a lot of people who have stayed in some of these buildings. There's some high-rise buildings here. They're off, you know, they're above 15 feet or so, above 20 feet. They feel pretty confident. We've talked to a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are walking around right now because as one of the outer bands of the storm has passed by, the rain has really stopped. It's calm. People are trying to walk their dogs, stretch their legs. Down in their homes, but again, they know what is coming. So does Chris Cuomo, who is down in Naples. Chris, you know, Chad was on just a second ago talking about potential storm surge, and Naples really is facing that potential of 10 to 15 feet of storm surge.
And that freaky phenomenon, the water getting sucked out by that, you know, that counterclockwise force, where on the East Coast, the East